What's up, everybody? This is Mirouku with Outer Rim CCG. Um, we're here today to talk about the meta for set 3 um, and to kind of look at the numbers that we have compared to set 2. I'm not going to go back as far as set 1. We'll look at a little bit of set 2, kind of some of the key percentages and stuff that I want to focus on for that. And then I want to talk about the meta for set 3. Before we get too far into it, I wanted to thank the Patreons that we have. We're actually growing pretty steadily, and I want to thank everybody that is supporting me and Bradley with our endeavor with Outer Rim. With that being said, I'm going to go ahead and get into kind of the comparisons of this set compared to last set. With this set, we are in week 6, and we still have until March before the next set comes out. And we are already at 109 planetary qualifiers worldwide. We've had a total of obviously 7,737 people with the average attendance of 71, which is pretty huge, or at least pretty decent, I think. With that being said, what we can look back on is for set 2, there was only 39 planetary qualifiers, but they had 3,783 in attendance for all of them, which is a little bit less than half of what we're currently having. But the average attendance was up to 97. So I don't know if maybe that because there's so many now, people are having to travel less, or they're getting their Star Wars fix a little bit better, so they're doing more locals and fewer PQs. I don't know. Hopefully the average attendance is only because they have so much availability now that people are having to travel less, and so it's just boosting up the numbers. The next thing I want to look at is where we are at the winner circle. Honestly, Han Yellow has just been absolutely dominating. Currently, of course, you see that he is at a 23.85% of winning a PQ. With a total of 26 wins out of the 109. That is a huge portion of the meta. Now, for any of y'all concerned, I don't think you necessarily have to be too worried about just Han running over everybody. And the reason why I say that is because even though, yes, he is winning, almost 24% of the PQs, you also have Sabine that is still showing a huge number of presence within the meta. And we're also not stuck to just having 4 or 5 decks that are topping. Right now I'm looking at just the ones that are above a 4% rating or win percentage for the PQs itself. And when I did this with Magic and kind of analyzed the stuff, 4% was kind of the cutoff for me before I stopped looking at anything below her. You have Han Green and Boss Green with close to a 5%. You have Quinlan Voss, Tarkentown, the version of that, at about a 6.5%. And then you have Django Tarkentown at a 9, and Sabine at a 12.8, almost at 13%. Those are just the winners of the current meta. But if you go through and you see, there is a huge combination through here of different decks. I mean, when you add just the ones over 4%, you have, you know, let me see here. I'm going to do the math real quick. You got 40 here with 50, 60. So 67% of the decks are 67 of the 109 is currently what is representing the meta. And those are the ones that are above 4%. So you're looking at so about 61% of the meta is represented by decks that are 4% or higher when it comes to the win rates. With that being said, so your other 39% that's still going through and hitting these top 8s and winning, I feel like that is showing a very healthy format. It's not like, you have one deck that's completely dominating. I mean, if anyone ever played Magic, you know that, Delver's Secrets was just absolutely awful, or the Eldrazi Winter that happened in Modern was absolutely terrible. And of course, you also had the boba problem in Star Wars itself that was also an issue. And I'll get to that in just a second, just for comparisons for anyone's concerns about possible shifting metas and everything else before the next set. I am going to look at the top 8 list. And here you'll see that Han actually has a bigger drop. Instead of his, staying roughly close to the same or anything like that, you had Han Yellow that was almost 24% of the winning meta. And then you also had like Han Green at close to 5, and then you see a few Han Reds popping up. Right now, if you look at the top 8, even though he's winning 24%, only you have almost Han and Sabine very close to that number together. So almost just as many Sabines is making it into the top as Hans. I mean, if you count Han Green, I think he gets another 2% push. And then, of course, the Han Reds would also push him above. So, you have like a 6% difference in Sabine and Han, which I don't feel is terrible at all. Just for perspective, Han Yellow is only at a 24% win rate. Or, well, Han in general is just at a 35%. We'll say 35. Which is a huge part of the meta. It's literally a third. Do I feel concerned about that? Absolutely not, because you had Boba Fett winning 54% of the meta in set 2. You had him top 8ing 42.3%. You compare 21% to 42, I'll take Han any day. Because it also shows that there's other decks that is actually able to compete against Han and actually have a decent outcome. And I feel like this is a very healthy format. I mean, you have Anakin Blue sitting here close to 4%. You have Boss Green and Boss Blue also a little over 4%. You have Cad Bane Tarkentown at 4.5%, with Quinlan and Django Tarkins at 9%. Sabine and Han are still your premier decks that are topping these events. Again, the top 8s, the only thing that I didn't cover over here is you do have a higher percentage of Palpatine and Kira also sneaking into the tops. Kira isn't exactly at 4%, but neither was Anakin over here. But different versions kind of push Anakin and Palpatine over. All in all, I feel like the format's healthy. You have a large amount of diversity in your decks, your leaders. Maybe not so much the bases. The Tarkin Town is pretty much going crazy in the meta right now, and the meta is honestly just super fast. I feel like that's probably why decks like Boss Blue is potentially struggling a little bit, as well as Palpatine and Kira. So that is my opinion on the current meta. Um, if you were planning on going to any of the sectors or any other planetary qualifiers that are near you guys, or even the Galactic Championship, which the meta by then is going to be completely different. I'll probably do at least another video or two talking about the meta for those videos before the event happens. But right now, if you're looking at doing any type of major events, or even if you just want to cheese out at a showdown, the best suggestion I would do is build a couple proxy decks, unless you have the actual cards or friends that have these decks and the cards that you need, and just, play these decks. I mean, if you are looking at all of these top 8s, that is going to be the majority of your meta showing up. So you need to know out of your deck how exactly to handle each one of these. Or you need to find something that also fits your playstyle to go to these events. I mean, last I saw, Palpatine Yellow was still similar to the old Palp Green or Palp Blue from set 2 that was a super hard control list. I haven't faced too many of the Palp Yellows, even though I have seen people like Veldshot run it, and it looked just absolutely horrific to face. But if you're looking at playing the hard control style, Palpatine would be someone that you would look at, whether it be the green, blue, or yellow version. Obviously, based off the meta that we're seeing here, Palpatine Yellow would be the better deck, or the one that has the better chance at making these tops. So that would be my choice of go-to if you're going for Palpatine. Boss Blue is also a very hard control deck. It seems to do really, really well until you get to the top 8. If you look at right here, he has Boss Blue has the same exact amount of decks making top 8 as the Boss Green version. Boss Blue is definitely the hard control, and I actually prefer it over the Boss Green. I feel like it's more resilient, but people's luck and people's ability to play the deck is a lot harder, and especially at these long tournaments, I personally wouldn't go to a tournament playing a hard control deck, so more power to these guys that is able to withstand the mental capabilities of playing that deck all day long. But the results also don't lie. Boss Blue is sitting at under a 2% win rate of a PQ. In fact, as a matter of fact, I believe it's only won 2 of the events that it's top 8'd, while Boss Green has won 5. It's not a big difference, but Boss Green is definitely more of a mid-range ramp deck that plays off the bounties to just overwhelm your opponent with bigger units, tougher units, and just close it out. While Boss Blue just literally grinds you out to where you kind of just want to go home. You don't want to sit there anymore. But some people like that kind of playstyle. Um, the other deck that I was going to talk about is Kira. Kira is not a like a super hard control. A lot of people are saying that she's like a soft control, and I definitely agree with that. I mean, she kind of helps control the field, shields up units, and just slowly chokes you out of the game, and finishes off with the typical Maul Vader. You know, basically what blue villainy has been doing since set one, basically, with the early Critics and Edens. And you can either do the ECL or the 30 green base for Kira. And I'll be honest with you, Kira was kind of one of my favorite picks for set 2. Her and Han 2 were. The next ones you have are kind of your mid-range decks. And I would put Anakin Blue there. He pretty much took the shell of Rey Red or Han 2 Blue and pretty much just replaced him with just a better leader. I loved Han 2. I thought he was really good. I thought he was going to absolutely stay in the meta and destroy it, and then Anakin came along and said, "No, that's my space, buddy." And honestly, I can't blame him. Like, Anakin has been so fun. He's probably been one of the, I would say him, Rex, and Quinlan have been the three most set 3 leaders that I've played. He's made, he's sitting at about a 4.5% top 8 because there's a different version as well. Mostly people play him as blue, but some people are also playing him as yellow and double red. But he's kind of in the same boat as a lot of these decks, like Palpate Yellow, Eden Blue, Han Red, Voss CCLs, stuff like that. He's only won 3 tournaments. And so he's sitting at about 3% win rate, or PQ win rate. Another deck I would consider like a soft control deck would be the Quinlan Voss decks. I know the Tarkentown version is a little bit faster and definitely much more reliable. But Quinlan Voss is sitting at about an 11% win rate, and I would at least say the ECL version is definitely much more mid-range to the soft control part. Maybe not so much as the Tarkentown version, which, my wife absolutely enjoys the Tarkentown version. In fact, she went away from Sabine Green just so she could play Quinlan Voss. Yeah, she went to a deck that's performing worse, but she's having more fun with it because she played Sabine for 2 sets in a row. But the ECL version I would definitely consider being a mid-range to a soft control, depending on a few different card variants. And it's kind of like Anakin Blue. Depending on how you play and what your playstyle is, you can make Annie be from a mid-range to a soft control, especially with dropping of like Luke's Redemptions. I haven't seen too many people play Resolute, which is his capital ship. I know it was popular in the beginning, and then it all just faded away because, honestly, Redemption is a whole lot better, or you go with smaller, faster units if you really want to be a speedier deck. I kind of want to say that Hot Yellow reminds me of a soft control to mid range, simply because of all the cunnings, the Bodhi Rooks, the bouncing, New Adventure. Some people play that. Obviously, cunnings. So, I mean, there's just a lot of, hey, I'm going to pick your deck apart. I'm going to limit your interactions and your abilities. And plus, everyone knows about the DJ Tech combo, which is absolutely brutal. And then Kira, and then they added Nest from set 3 as well. So honestly, with as much bounce effects as you have out of Han, you could honestly potentially make an argument that it's definitely a softer control deck now, instead of just being a mid range. But if you want to keep it in the mid range, that's fine. Decks that I would consider tempo to mid range would be Jango Fett. Honestly, this deck was a sleeper. I completely missed it during the pre-releases and stuff. And honestly, it has a lot to do with the fact that Boba Fett was still in the meta. I mean, he was there, and there's no reason for me to assume that it's going to be any different. So he was the cunning villain. Cad Bane showed some signs of life last set, but all in all, it was the Boba show. I am actually really glad they banned him, or suspended. Sorry, they suspended him because now we have Jango and Cad Bane competing in the villain spot. But I would consider Jango a tempo 2 mid-range deck because there's games to where Jango can just rip out cards like no other and just completely overwhelm you with the pinging and the tapping down and just overwhelm you. Same can be said about Cad Bane, considering he does a ping as well. And I honestly think Cad Bane would be considered the tempo, more so than Jango. Quinlan Tarkentown, definitely a mid-range to tempo deck. I would say mid-range for him because he deals with bigger units and kind of grinds down the field a little bit more and longer than some of the other two. But your complete aggro list is still Sabine. It doesn't matter what version you use of her. Most people are still going to be on the ECL. As a matter of fact, there's only an top 8 difference. So you had 8 other decks that had Sabine in it that was not ECL. And I don't know if that was because they were running a 30-point green base or they had swapped over to the yellow, which Blonde Sabine was kind of popular in set 1. And it's still kind of floating around there, but not as much. But honestly, a lot of and some people may argue this, but honestly, a lot of these tournaments, the big difference between them is, you can give a new player a, Han yellow deck and wish them the best of luck. But a lot of it also comes down with the experience of your opponent and the knowledge of the deck that they're piloting. Prime example, and I know this isn't no PQ or anything else, but you still had a huge amount of people. The other part of Outer Rim, Bradley, he piloted a red-green Leia deck in set 1, and he was able to win Store Showdown. He topped in 2 others, and these Store Showdowns had anywhere from 20 people to close to 50. And with the PQ average attendance right now being at 70, I still think that should speak a lot about how good of a player that Bradley is to take a deck that isn't considered top tier and to be able to win a Store Showdown. I took Luke in the first set, and I made top 4 both times, and I even won the second one. So with that being said, for anyone with concerns of the meta, if you look back and you look at it, Boba was winning 54% of the PQs. He was top 8ing 42% of them. You compare that to Han winning 21%. Or 23%. 24, sorry. And only topping 21%. I'll take those numbers any day. And I think as more cards are released, the less problems we're going to have with decks just being overly dominating. Simply because, I mean, the card pool is massive. The leaders, the diversity on the leaders is massive. You know, you have such a huge, diverse field right now. And it really surprises me because overall you have less cards than, say, Magic does in a block. Because they release sets or they used to release a set like every 3 months. So they had like 4 a year, but they're close to the same set size as Star Wars. But yet, year after year after year of me playing it, Magic really only ever had in their standard format, maybe 5 to 10 decks that was acceptable to play in the standard format. You have an Eternal format or multiple Eternal formats, and Vintage again, 2 or 3. But if you're trying to play Vintage, you're selling your house to buy the cards. Legacy, very expensive format. Again, very watered down to you played Stoneblade and that was it for the most part. You had a few miracles, you had some dredge, they're nothing crazy. And then modern was amazing about 6-7 years ago, that had 30 different decks that you could play and still top. Right here I'm looking at top 8, and there is way more than 30. Yeah, you have a lot of like 2s and 1s, but for being over 4%, you have 7 decks, and then you have another 4 that is still above a 2%, which is, I feel like, an acceptable amount of decks to be a potential. And for a game that's only released 3 sets, I don't think we have any issues. I don't think we're going to have the issues that we did in Magic. And Fantasy Flight Games has been rocking it out, and I'm very happy with how they've been doing with this game. And I hope they continue on the great work. I'm really looking forward to them hopefully doing some extended universe stuff here soon. Everybody wants Revan. Hint, hint, Fantasy Flights, if you see this, But for anyone that has like showcases or anything else with your Han, I don't think you have anything to worry about with them suspending Han, simply because I don't feel like, the comparison to him and Boba is even in the realm of possibilities. And another great thing is they are going to be releasing or starting a Eternal format, I believe probably around next March, because that will be when the first 3 sets will rotate out. So your cards will still maintain value. And I'm not sure if they're going to suspend Boba in that format or yet. I'm sure we'll get an announcement come March of next year. But if you like the content and you enjoyed what you've heard today, and a little bit of some advice and some discussion of the decks and kind of the breakdown of the meta, please like, share, subscribe. Come join us on the Discord. You'll get that through the Patreon, which will be provided to you guys in the video. I appreciate you guys. Take care. We'll look forward to seeing you again.